All right, Bridget Conry is back. It's Companion Botanicals. Thanks for
Oh, you're welcome. It's like to be here.
So last time we talked about pain relief, but only using topicals so that we could, kind of deal with this beast in parts.
Exactly.
I'm a Gen X kind of guy. I remember the 1980s when Tylenol was supposed to just kind of solve it, right?
Yes. And when I was thinking about this, so we're talking about, herbs to use that you ingest so that you have systemic pain management. And when I got thinking about it and thinking about, what do most people take to deal with chronic pain? They're taking prescription drugs that are usually got an anti-inflammatory component. They have there's steroids that could be opiates. There's lots of options over there. And then there's the over the counter, which are Tylenol and, Motrin and Advil and aspirin. And I got thinking, even me, like I deal with herbs and all those things. I didn't really have a great sense of how those things worked. We just took them,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and some people took a lot, I mean, I was an athlete, at a high level, and we just were told to take them all the time to deal with the pain, and for women, and girls dealing with menstrual things, like the amount of Advil and Tylenol that girls, I mean, get personal here, but it's like you just took them, and did you really know what you were taking, and some of the dangers that are associated with them?
So that's kind of what I'm saying with Gen X, with the 1980s, with the 1990s, we were just, okay, just take these and everything was fine. And we just popped them. And then who knows if anything was solved. What did you find out when you kind of unpacked it a little bit? I wonder.
I mean, it's really basic information, but
Yeah.
that's why I'm like, oh my God, like I can't believe that I didn't have that like at my facility to just speak about what the difference is between them. Do you know what the difference is between things like Advil and ibuprofen and aspirin as opposed to acetaminophen, which is like Tylenol and other things?
I do not. I know that there have been distinctions made to me, but I don't know why.
Yeah. So NSAIDs, which are like Advil and aspirin, their NSAID stands for non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs.
Uh-huh.
So those are anti-inflammatory. There's they're analgesic as well, but part of the reason why they're effective as analgesics is because they're managing inflammation. And inflammation is one of the things that causes pain.
Mm-hmm.
So, NSAIDs are anti-inflammatory. Acetaminophen is not. It's just analgesic. It just works differently. It works by disrupting your brain's ability to release certain chemicals that stimulate pain sensation.
Huh. So
it's a blocker. It's a blocker.
It's masking the issue. It is not dealing with the issue in any way.
No. And so, I mean, you want to feel pain. I mean, we have pain because it tells us stop doing that or something's wrong. And when we mask it, I mean, that's why it gets so dangerous with athletes in particular, is that all you're doing is stopping your body from doing what it would normally do to deal with some sort of trauma. It's a signal something's wrong,
This
so
is one of
those things. It just totally masks it. It could reduce the swelling, reduce the pain, and allow you to keep doing what you're doing, but you're continuing the damage unless you're doing other things.
So this is one of the reasons that I'm hearing more and more that acetaminophen, if it were put up to the FDA now, it would not pass muster.
Oh, I haven't read that actually.
Check it out. It's an interesting thing that people are saying now, and by people I mean scientists.
Yeah, so, cool. I'll have to look at.
Yeah, wouldn't pass a clinical trial.
NSAIDs are not that we spend all of our time on over-the-counter drugs here, but they are metabolized in your kidneys, and acetaminophen is metabolized in your liver. And so that's why the side effects are different with them. They do share some negative side effects, but they have very different ones too. And that's why if you use too much Tylenol, you have liver issues. And if you use too many NSAIDs, it leads to more like digestive problems, ulcers and digestive irritation and things like that. You can have bleeding and stuff in your gut. You don't have that with Tylenol. So And that just, that just got me thinking about too, like usually when you take those things, or you take other prescription drugs, like you have side effects where then you get prescribed other things, like opiates make you constipated, you know, NSAIDs can cause the stomach irritation and things like that. So you have to take something else to deal with that.
Mm.
And, that's why we have herbal formulation.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because, well, just because we're humans from Earth, and so we could use Earth to help us humans, as opposed to, these other things. My favorite advertisement of all time is the opioid-induced constipation ad, which says, take this pill because the pill that we gave you last time made you have this now.
Yes.
So I love that. All right, so that brings us up to speed with what we have been taking. What are maybe some alternative options as far as botanicals?
Yeah, well, I put together a handy dandy list that you're going to post.
Fair enough. Yeah.
In the comments.
Yeah.
Because these are, it's not a comprehensive list. And again, and they're not done in any kind of order.
Yeah.
9 of them, and they do different things. And again, it brings us back to that general, like, this is how you figure out what works best for you, is you've got to know something about yourself, and then you got to know something about the products that you're taking.
Right.
Because some of them might not be good for you,
Sure.
for whatever reason. Because you're like valerian. We were talking about valerian off camera a little while ago, and valerian's a powerhouse. It does a lot of different things. It's analgesic. It can help with anxiety. It can help with sleep. But Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine, they classify it as a heating herb, and so that it can, people who have heat issues, they shouldn't use valerian. They should use something that does similar things, but is cooling, like skullcap. And so you wouldn't know that unless you knew something about yourself and knew something about valerian outside of the fact that it was pain relieving and helps for sleep. Yeah. And that's why it's really important that you don't just start taking stuff because you read the box. You really should involve a healthcare practitioner of some kind, whether it's an herbalist or a naturopath, who can help you figure that stuff out. And so I actually have the list in front of me too. I wasn't going to remember it all, but I think to start out on there, obviously, like willow bark is an interesting one, because willow bark is where aspirin came from. And again, that underlines what we talked about before, is that most pharmaceutical prescription drugs, they were discovered because they were plant-based medicine first. And so willow bark has been used forever to deal with pain. And it's because of the active ingredient, which is salicylic, I can never pronounce it, acid, which is basically what aspirin is. So is willow bark anti-inflammatory or not? Yeah, anti-inflammatory and analgesic. Yes. And so
you get everything right there. You don't even need any of the, whatever. Well, but you have everything there as far as anti-inflammatory, right?
Yes. But it's a very direct example of, wow, this is anti-inflammatory and pain relieving. And one of the issues with it is that salicylic acid is irritating to the lining of the gut. So if you take too much of it, you can have stomach upset and cause, ulcers and things like that. So Bayer, like Bayer aspirin, one of their scientists manipulated it, isolated salicylic acid, manipulated it, created something else out of it. What is it? Acetylsalicylic acid. That's a mouthful. Say that 5 times fast. Which was easier on the stomach. Yeah. Same active ingredient, changed a little bit, easier on the stomach, so that you can take more of it and not have that discomfort. So still used, so if you don't want to use aspirin, you can use willow bark teas or capsules or tinctures to manage some of those conditions. And some of them, like ginger and turmeric, they're things that you can just put into your diet. Like some of these things you do take as extracts or in powdered form in a capsule or something, because that's how they're most effective. And ginger and turmeric can be taken those ways too, but so much better to just start making it part of your everyday diet. Throw them.
We've already talked about my wife now, who has her tea with the ginger and the turmeric. For me, it doesn't taste too good, but now I just drink it because it's good for me.
Yeah, totally. And that's another good example too of like having to know something about the product and whether it's good for you. Is that, you know, we talk about cannabis. I mean, that's why we're here, cannabis economy. People use, that's another plant that people use for pain management. That we talk about all the different chemovars or strains or cultivars, whatever you want to call them. Everybody calls them something different these days. That they all do different things. Well, it's the same way with the plants, you know, and so certain chemovars or strains of ginger are more anti-inflammatory than others, and certain forms, you know, and so like dried ginger root is more pungent and fiery. And so if you've got a digestive system that's overheating, you don't take dried ginger root tea. You use fresh ginger because fresh ginger actually has cooling aspects, even though it's still stimulating digestion. And so there's all these layers that you gotta figure out. And that's why it's nice to have help, you know, whether that's through self-study or working with an herbalist.
Well, and I don't mean to give away the store here right in the middle, but basically what we're saying is rather than just mindlessly popping a pill, what you can do is, yes, read the box, or you know, go ahead and find out what you can about ginger and turmeric, and then also think about what happens to you and how things interact with you and what's happening with you in the moment, so that you can mindfully take what you need to take.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we talked about. Oh, go ahead.
Really exciting though too that, you know, I'm in the cannabis industry. I witness the excitement that our clients have right now, and just people who are getting to know cannabis right now. The excitement that they have exploring all of these different aspects of the cannabis plant and all the different varieties. Guess what, everybody? There's all these other plants out there that you can do that with too, and you can geek out on, and you can in a combination with cannabis to help manage your symptoms. So, so you want to punch off a couple other here on the list real quick? I mean,
absolutely.
So, you know, I don't want to say that ginger and turmeric are not powerhouses, because they are, but they're powerhouses that you can kind of take without a lot of concern about taking too much, you know. Obviously, I always want to say that if you're ever going to start taking something routinely, and you're taking prescription medications, you should talk to your doctor, because there are interactions, even with things that seem harmless, because, oh, that's in my diet, I have that every once in a while. But if you start to take it regularly as a capsule, as a concentrated thing, it might interrupt the effectiveness of some of the prescription drugs that you're taking. So generally we think of ginger and turmeric as being kind of gentle, and that we can eat it. But they're still super powerful. But then there's things like kava kava and Jamaican dogwood and valerian that just, they kind of pack more of a punch right out of the gate, you know? And so you gotta kind of look into those a little bit and understand what you want to take, because you can take too much of that. I mean, kava kava in particular, that we're starting to see it in different formulas right now with cannabis, because it does some similar things. I mean, it acts on your brain in the way that cannabis does, is that it gives you a little bit of a euphoria and kind of the drowsy and sedation that could come from certain strains. Some people, when they take kava kava, they actually feel drunk if they take too much. And so taken in the right form and the right dose, it can help with pain, and it can help with sleep because of those things, because it gives you that mood uplifting and that dissociation that THC does, and it helps sedate you. So you got to be careful with that one. And that one actually has, the FDA has cautions about that one. They actually have it on the list of like, this is not safe to take, because there's like one study out there that somebody took it and it really did a number on them, but they took too much, you know. And I don't want to put down, I mean, you should take FDA warnings seriously. I never want to sound like I'm not, but that happens a lot to herbs, is that there's just one thing where somebody, you know, wasn't educated and they took it the wrong way, and then it's like, not safe, toxic to the liver. But it is, you got to be careful with that one, because it's strong. It doesn't agree with everybody.
Right.
It's really great for the right time and place.
And you mentioned Jamaican root and valerian root.
Jamaican dogwood. Yeah.
Jamaican dogwood and valerian root. So do you want to quick do Jamaican dogwood, and then we'll finish with valerian root because I've got some
Yeah, I
thoughts.
mean, they're all they're all analgesic, and on top of that, they do other things. And Jamaican dogwood is used a lot in formulas for women. I mean, even though it's good for headaches generally and back pain, lower back pain, a lot of formulas for that. It's also great for the pain and swelling associated with the menstrual cycle. And so, that's why they're all different, and you kind of got to get to know them and be like, what am I dealing with? And what might be the herbs that have an affinity for that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so finishing with valerian root, I have taken it in the past. You referenced that earlier. I took it in capsule form. This is over 10 years ago. My physiology was very different. I treated my body very differently. I was less in touch with my body. And I do know that it did nothing for me, but I have no idea what else was going on. I also have no idea what that box said. I also did no research whatsoever.
Right.
And so I think it's on me to go ahead and do a little bit more research. Obviously, this conversation is nice, but I have to do my own research, take a look at all the different types of formulations, and then make a decision from there. But what would you add from your side on valerian root to finish?
Well, bringing it back to cannabis too. I mean, valerian's becoming very popular right now. Like, you're starting to see a lot of CBD products that are being formulated with companion botanicals, because when you first come to CBD, we don't have the language around CBD the way that we do around cannabis. Like with why certain, no one says what's the strain of CBD. What's the strain associated with that? Because that's how you know whether it's going to be uplifting or staying, whatever. And so that hasn't happened yet, and it's very small pockets it has, but what is happening is that you're getting capsules that have CBD in them, and now they're being formulated to be for nighttime because they also have 10 milligrams of valerian in it. And valerian is one of the real popular ones that you're seeing in kind of more of the sleep CBD formulas. And so where you can get in trouble and what you need to know is that, one, valerian root, even though it's very effective for some people to help them go to sleep, if you have a hot system, if you got a hot system going on and you need to cool it down, valerian's going to inflame that heat. And so you're going to, because it's a heating herb, it's classified that way in both traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda. And so it's not the right sleep inducer for people who run hot. You'd want to use something like skullcap instead, which is in the mint family and is anti-inflammatory. And so, and I'm not saying that's the definite one, but that's like the example. And so if you are going, and the other thing and with the CBD too, is that a lot of people don't understand that CBD isolate for some people is stimulating, and the reason why CBD helps people go to sleep is not necessarily because of the CBD, it's because the terpenes and whatever else is in those broad spectrum and full spectrum extracts that make that product, because it was made with whatever strain we don't know yet right now. That's why it helps you sleep. And they might have another 20 milligram capsule CBD and it doesn't work because it's from a different plant. And so if you run hot and you're buying a CBD capsule that's formulated to sleep with valerian and the CBD is isolate, you could have a miserable time on that, because it's going to just keep you up and it's going to aggravate your hot-headedness.
And the key there is because of you being part of all of that, information. It's your information along with the product's information.
Yes.
That you've got to consider. So it is about being mindful. It is about finding these answers. These conversations between you and I are meant to start the conversation, not finish them. So, Bridget, thank you so much as always. This is always a pleasure.
Yes.
I already can't wait for the next one.
All right. Awesome. See you soon.